Hello everyone and welcome. On this episode of Future Shop, we are going to be adding stats to our characters. As you can see right here, a character will now have health, attack and defense. Also, the jobs will have stats as well. So if you want to know how that's done, stick around and let's get started. Well, to get started with stats, the first thing we need to do is start by adding the stats to the characters. And I want to add a public int for the max health a character can have, and this is just the maximum health a character will have. Then we want another public int for the health, and this is the health a character has at that point in time. After that, we want a public int for the attack and a public int for the defense. And these two stats will influence how good a character will perform when doing a job. Now, if we move to the job class, let's go ahead and add a public int for the minimum damage that this job can do, and let's also add a public int for the max damage. And this will be in percentage, and this will influence how tough a job can be. And now that we have all these stats on our characters, let's go ahead and jump to a time lapse to display these stats in the character selection. Let's go.
When you're young, when you're restless, when you're fun, cause you're desperate. Oh, here they come for a chance, for adventure. What's your poison? What's your pleasure? Oh, my city, she never sleeps. My city, she never weeps. My city, she keeps me alive. Give it up for my city, oh, oh. Give it up for my city, oh, oh. Give it up for my city, oh, oh, oh. Give it my city. Where do you go when your heart with a fever? When she's cruel, but you won't leave her. Oh, here we are, all the freaks and believers, all the sweet neon dreamers. Oh, my city. She never sleeps, my city. She never weeps, my city. She keeps me alive. Give it up for my city, oh, oh. Give it up for my city, oh, oh. Give it up for my city, oh, oh, oh. Give it my city, my city. My city, my city. Give it up for my city, oh, oh. Give it up for my city, oh, oh. Give it up for my city.
Well, now we want to tie up a character to a job, meaning we want a certain character to be executing a certain job. And we want that because we want to use the stats of the character to get an approximation of how well it will perform doing a certain job. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is we need to get a public character here on the job controller, and this will be the active character. And there's an E missing there, so active character. And then in the job controller, we can simply go job controller dot instance dot active character is going to be equals to the C, which is the current character. And now, if we jump to Unity and we run the game, you can see that if I highlight here the job controller, you can see here in the inspector that right now there is no character active. If we click this one, it will change to this one and it will display its stats. The name, the health, the attack, the defense. If we go back and click this other one, it will change to that one. And this will be useful because now we can use the attack, defense and health to get an approximation of how well the character will perform. Well, now it comes a time where math comes into play in these games. So we want to make a formula to tell how tough a character is based on its stats. And I've come up with a formula. So let's go ahead and start writing it. The first thing we need to do is get an integer for the, I don't know, let's call it level. And the level is basically a sum of all the stat values divided by how many stats we have. In this case, we have 2. So let's just go ahead and place a 2 there, and let's go and make a sum. So sum the attack plus the defense. Next thing we need to do, and oh yeah, of course, and since this is a division, we don't want this to be an integer, we want this to be a float. Now, next, we want another float for the toughness. And the toughness, what I found works is we want a mathf.pow, and we want the level raised to the power of 2, and then we will multiply that by 10f, just so we get a nice round number. And this is not the best way of telling how tough a character is. It certainly works, and we can certainly improve on this formula, but for now let's go ahead and send this toughness here whenever we get an item. So toughness, and yeah, let's go ahead, I don't know, let's add it in the end here. So let's go ahead and add here a new float for the toughness. So now let's calculate the amount of damage a job will do. And to do that, let's go ahead and get a new integer and let's call it damage, I don't know. And this will be a random.range between the job.min damage and the job.max damage. And for some reason I have an n there, which I don't like. So let's go ahead and take that. Save it and go back here to the job controller. And after we get a random value between the minimum damage it can do and the maximum damage it can do, let's go ahead and multiply that value by 20. Just so we get a higher number. We can always change these values to some larger values, but I don't know, let's just for now multiply that by 20. Now that we have a value of how much damage a job will do, we can check if that damage is smaller than the toughness of our character. And if that's correct, we can reward our players with an item. However, if it's not, if the damage is higher than the toughness of our character, we will not be getting any items. So if we jump here into Unity and we run the game, you can see that these high-end jobs here, at least these last 3, will not yield any items. And the drones one will always get us an item, and the droids one is not certain. I see. So it will depend on where the random dot range will hit, but mostly these three, there's a percentage on how often we will get items. And we reach the end of this episode. We now have stats on our characters, and we also have stats on our jobs, and that means not every character will be able to do any job. And yeah, I really enjoy that. And I was going to release this version of the game because we are on episode number 10. However, I don't really fancy how it is right now. There's not much gameplay to be had, so I will postpone that to a later day. And on the next episode, we will be fixing bugs. It will be a bug fixing episode, and it will be a code rearranging and changing of a lot of the code that I'm really not liking at the moment. So be on the lookout for that. If you like this episode, give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more, and yeah, I will see you on the next week. Bye!